remember, like, going into the 90s? Like, there's some movies that I would recommend you leave in the past. The movies with cops. So you had one cop who was playing by the rules, ready for retirement. The other one who was rogue. Took the badge. Maverick. He's a maverick. He don't play by the rules. He's dangerous. He hangs on to 18-wheelers going, 90 miles per hour by the side and takes a fleet of army down, a whole fleet. Just talking about it, I get blurry. That's how bad it gets. No, there's no rules. Once you take the badge off, anything goes. It's full on, too, when the good cop, who played by the rules his whole career, goes,
all right, I'm taking my badge off, too, for this one time.
And, you think about those films we grew up on, is the cop movies, lawyer TV shows, the hospital shows. You would think that the only jobs in America are cops, lawyers, and some gig at the hospital. Welcome to Late Night Update. I am your late night host, Dean Ryan. It is an impromptu night here. That's why it's late night. As tonight we're going to be getting into something that has now crossed my pathway that I had to share with this effective audience all over the world here. As many people have been wondering about this upcoming election, we have been facing the dangers and the escalating violence, crime, lawlessness that has been plaguing many, if not all of the metropolitan cities around the United States, especially the West, from London to Ottawa, Calgary to Sydney, all of New Zealand at this point. Pretty much all the most prominent places in the West have faced an altered, just kind of societal decline. So how is this going to look? Many people have lost the will to even want to know how this is going to look and have just accepted this artificial revelations, this artificial downturn into the Klaus Schwab blueprints. Well, let's turn back time here, as tonight I'm going to show you a very, very, what I tend to believe is a breaking news piece here. From a gentleman that even people like General Michael Flynn have told people to see this clip, which I'm going to show you, which lays everything out, which also highlights many of the intelligence, the intel that myself and others have received as far back as 2020 and some even as far back as 2017. We're going to put it all together here tonight, as this impromptu late night update is providing us the bravado to do so. So let's get into the backstory here, because we're going to be talking about a gentleman named Ivan Raiklin. And if you don't know who that is, like myself, I didn't know either, but it's going to make sense, as Mr. Ivan Raiklin is a lieutenant colonel who is a retired former Green Beret, constitutional attorney, and he served 25 years in the Department of Defense. This is a big player. He also served as the Special Operations Communications Officer, reserves, just the entire branch of the military in the most prominent positions. He's been there. But this is a man who is also been referred to as, well, the deep state martyr, the secretary of retribution, just to name a few of the nicknames. And it sounds a little daft, but once you hear this tonight, it's going to put all the marbles and connect all the dots here. I can promise you that. But let me just go back in time a little bit here before we get to Mr. Raiklin's clip here, which he talks to a CNN reporter, and it will blow your mind. So when we go back to 2017, I can confirm with you, and I've shared this before, and I should do it more as the times have changed and we've evolved as a demographic and audience here. But as far back as 2017, there were special forces who were conducting and training for what we would call an insurrection, a real one, not the most dreadful one the day after the 5th of January, but real ones with special forces, Green Berets. You can even throw super soldiers if you want, but some very high-level, skilled military personnel were part of this training, which stemmed from California, so the big cities of LA. It went through Portland, Seattle. Then there was a specific training module that was happening in New York. I confirmed that over several times. And why those big cities, you might ask? Well, that's where the downturn, the depravity, the foreign actors, that's the breeding grounds for what we're enduring, a lot of what we're enduring today. And the military was underground warfare as it was training for a new terrain in this 21st century World War III that we're now enduring. And fast forwarding that, Trump gets into office. This training happens, and 2020 comes around, and deja vu strikes in. Excuse me. But what was supposed to have gone down was a gauntlet was supposed to have been dropped, and that was the lead up to Operation Warp Speed. We all know what that is. We know what the miracle jab rollout was. But what that wasn't, although it was prepared, and everybody that I spoke to, all the military personnel, it was prepared for the big mass arrest that we all were hearing about in the circles in the lead up to the 2020 election. And there was a chain in the command in the rotator belt of the military industrial complex that prevented that from happening. There is high level treason with very prominent people that we haven't even just heard about yet, know about. And also the big treasonous John Brennan, the big treasonous Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, all of the Russian collusion all-stars are still walking freely today. Why? And what you're about to hear is the answer to why, which will then further expand on that. But you're going to hear about the cover-ups and how this is going to look. And the operative word of tonight and the theme of this module that we're living through is localization. That is the key. And let us not forget, before we get started here, is Trump deputized and was giving priority towards the United States deputies and sheriffs of America. That is the big takeaway from this, and that is very key. And if you recall that, it was a big deal because the city cops, the police, the Chicago, NYPD, LAPD, they've all been usurped because of the Barack Obama Safer Streets initiatives, which federalized almost nearly every single police precinct in the United States. And that sovereignty was given to the federal government during his tenure. And his final attempt that he didn't succeed in, was to give that sovereignty, give that power, that oversight, that command to the United Nations. Do we understand why that would have been? So they would have stood down for these globalist orders. He never succeeded in that, but it doesn't mean that the city cops are in any way understanding of what a constitutional republic truly really is. And it's still to this day, I believe that is taken effect. However, the evolution of our thinking, understanding, and thoughts is definitely a high level contrast of difference than it was 4 years ago. So let's get into this, and we'll expand after. As we're going to be now watching Mr. Ivan Raiklin speak to a very young CNN reporter, and he filmed it. And this is one of the most important little segments, video footages that you'll probably see in quite some time. So it passed my way. Let's get to it. As now we learn the truth about how this year is going to be shaped. Here it is. Check it out, Ivan Raiklin.
I didn't know who would be here, but can I just ask, like, what brought you here today? Why you decided to come?
What's your name and what organization are you with?
Zoe Chase.
Zoe Chase.
And the show is called This American Life. It's a radio show.
And what radio program is it on?
It's its own show. It airs all over the country.
Who sponsors it? Is it on what program?
It's a for-profit company. It's its own independent company. It airs on public radio stations.
So it's on NPR?
Well, yeah, it's on public radio, but it's not an NPR program. It's its own company.
Okay. So what is your question? You talked to me before?
Yeah, we met. I mean, it was like 2
Are
years
you
ago.
sure?
Yeah.
Which Reawaken?
It was the first one I went to was in Nashville.
Nashville.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I was in Nashville and that was not the first one.
No, it was my first one.
Okay.
It wasn't the first one. But there was like a hotel meet and greet afterwards with flyover.
And you're based out of where?
New York.
What brings you down here when you have that trial up there that you
I
should
don't
be
get to cover
focused
the
on?
trial. That's not my job.
How do they allocate
unfortunately.
that?
Well,
Like, do you get tasked to come down here?
Not really. I don't get to make my own choices, but our show is like a documentary show more. It's like a magazine.
Okay.
And so we don't do breaking news.
So do you want to do a sit-down long-form interview with me?
Well, actually, I was just going to ask you kind of like what brought you here, like why you were here and what you made of it. But we could talk.
I'll put a post up about it with that question. And then you can follow that on X, Telegram, Truth, Getter, my Rumble channel,
right,
and all the other ones. And I can provide you that.
I just followed you on Twitter because I was like,
okay, which one? Ivan Raiklin?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because the other one's still censored by Brian Alton at the FBI.
We're not letting people in until 1:50. So if you're for the anti-Semitism,
okay.
Sorry. Okay.
So my Raiklin account is still being censored by the FBI's Brian Alton, Laura Demlow, Joe Pientka, and Elvis Chan.
Whoa. So you started a new account?
No, that still exists because it was reinstated. Those are the individuals that are at the FBI that run the censorship industrial complex on behalf of this illegitimate regime. Do you know those names?
No.
I can provide you much detail on. They were the ones also involved in the original illegal Crossfire Hurricane spying operation on General Flynn, Carter Page, George Papadopoulos, and Paul Manafort. I have receipts on every single individual. That's why they haven't really come after me yet, because if they bring me in, the entire regime comes crumbling down.
Whoa.
Okay?
Well,
so they are scared of me, not the other way around.
That makes more sense. You, on your Twitter bio, I noticed today it said Secretary of Retribution.
Yep.
I just wondered what that meant.
Yeah, that means that I will guarantee consequences for a list of at least 350 individuals that are on my deep state target list.
Okay.
And when you read that deep state target list, remember, I'm an attorney and a retired Green Beret. Okay?
That I know. Well, that I might be interested in talking with you more about is your deep state target list, if you have time.
Elon Musk has it. Michael Schellenberger has it. Matt Taibbi has it. The Judiciary Committee has it. The Weaponization Committee has it. The Oversight Subcommittee that is part of the House Administration Committee has it. The House Freedom Caucus has it. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, likely has it. And it's just a matter of time for a joint press conference to take place between Speaker Johnson and Elon Musk to go ahead and disclose and release the Twitter direct messages of those individuals on my deep state target list, proving the seditious conspiracy going back to 2016, the illegal spying operation on the Trump campaign. You're also going to find the involvement of Mike Pence and his chief of staff, Joshua Pitcock, in that conspiracy, along with Josh Pitcock's wife, Catherine Seaman, who was the senior Russia analyst for Peter Strzok, who was one of the two individuals that was deployed by Jim Comey and Andrew McCabe to get General Flynn to lie or to get him fired, as per Bill Priestap's notes, which was the Deputy Assistant Director of Counterintelligence at the FBI.
That's a long list.
I can go in much more detail, but that's generally the crux of it.
Do you get to meet with Jim Jordan and talk about this stuff?
I meet with everybody.
All these guys?
Every single member that you think I talk to or may talk to, I talk to them.
And what do you guys talk about? Like, what's the reason that you talk to them?
Everything that I put out publicly,
Yeah.
I also provide that to them.
And I guess
I
what
don't do
mean
anything
is,
behind the sheet, like behind closed doors.
I guess what I
Everything
mean
is
is like, what are you
transparent.
hoping to get out of talking to them? Like, why do you do it?
I want to guarantee Elon Musk discloses the direct messages for the mother of all Twitter files, so that the entire country can see what just occurred to them, from starting from the illegal spying operation, the corrupt DOJ and FBI. The raid on Mar-a-Lago was to seize the evidence that was declassified by Donald Trump in the last few hours of his first term, which involved the Crossfire hurricane details, which would list all the names that I've mentioned so far. Whether it was Lisa Page, who was Andy McCabe's chief counsel at the time, along with Peter Strzok, a guy by the name of Joseph Pientka III, who is currently the number 3 individual at the San Francisco field office. So you have the special agent in charge, you have a ASAC, assistant special agents in charge, and then you have the ASAC for counterintelligence. That guy is a guy by the name of Joseph Pientka III, who was the second agent that was deployed to interview General Flynn on January 24th, 2017, in order to get General Flynn fired or to get him to lie. That was an entrapment. And that's the same agent that was deployed in August of 2016 to the Trump campaign to do what they call a counterintelligence briefing, a defensive one, but with the secondary purpose in order to, and this was him, Pientka, along with Trump, Chris Christie. You know that Chris Christie's attorney during his Bridgegate scandal was Christopher Wray?
I didn't know that.
Well, now you know. And then the third person in that meeting was a guy by the name of General Flynn. Joe Pientka was deployed by the Crossfire Hurricane leadership, authorized by the General Counsel at the time, Jim Baker, who then later became the Twitter 1.0 number 2 lawyer, to coordinate the censorship industrial complex, to cover up and censor and suspend those individuals that exposed their corruption, okay? And it just keeps mounting and mounting and mounting, the cover-ups. This is just yet they're trying to take out Trump now, because they were able to take out their first existential threat, which was General Flynn, because he would have been the first one to go ahead and expose this level of corruption, because he knows the system. Now that Trump knows the system after being 4 years in it, he is now an existential threat to that very DOJ, the national security apparatus. Remember, 39 individuals unmasked General Flynn, okay? One of them was Jamie Raskin's wife, Sarah Raskin. Totally unlawful unmasking. Look that up. The 51 individuals that said the Biden laptop had all the earmarks of a Russian information campaign, where your colleagues over at Politico published that on their website. One of those 51 individuals is John Brennan. Another one is a guy by the name of David Buckley. David Buckley ended up becoming the staff director for Liz Cheney's and Benny Thompson and Nancy Pelosi's January 6th cover-up committee.
So it's a pretty small world, it sounds like.
So David Buckley was tasked to create a list and do his deep state target list of political targets. So now it's my turn. I have a deep state target list, and I'm coming for all of them. And what does that mean when I say coming for all of them? It means the most legal, moral, and ethical consequences to the maximum, to include the maximum punishment for treason, I personally guarantee that they're going to face those consequences. And you can take a look at that list.
Like, are you going to sue them? Is that what you would do?
Just wait for it.
Okay.
You will see it. It will be so visible for the entire world to see and hear. I'll give you some examples.
Okay.
I'm going to incorporate the precedents that's already been set. So we're going to incorporate what was done to General Flynn. We're going to incorporate what was done to Steve Bannon, what was done to Peter Navarro, what was done to Mike Lindell, what was done to Scott Perry. Translation: expect to see live streamed swatting raids of every single individual on that deep state target list, because the precedence has already been set.
And with
Remember
that,
when Mike Lindell in the Hardee's parking lot, the FBI went and conducted armed robbery of him in Minnesota? Remember when Peter Navarro was swatted in an airport? Remember when Steve Bannon, on multiple occasions within the U.S. Capitol Police jurisdictional zone, conducted swattings and allowed for swattings to take place of Steve Bannon and his residence? Remember the armed robbery and burglary of Roger Stone that was live streamed by your colleagues over at Criminal
CNN.
News Network?
Yeah.
That we're going to take in the collective and do that, okay?
Okay.
It does not matter what happens in the election. It does not matter who
That's what I was
wins the
gonna
election.
ask.
This is going to take place at the hands of the American people, with or without an election, and with or without whoever wins the election. I guarantee you that that will take place at the county and state level, because right now the federal government is not in a position, because of its capture and its corruption. So imagine this. When you take a look at the direct messages and the geotagged location data of the 350 plus members on that deep state target list, and then you curate that, Elon Musk, and then do geotagging of the communications, and then you present those communications to name the county of the 3,143 county and county equivalents in our nation, the 50 states and the 6 federal districts, right?
Okay.
And then you identify where a treasonous communication took place. And then you present that to the local DA, similar to good old Alvin Bragg. That then will create the nexus to showcase this criminal, conspiratorial, seditious conspiracy and treason charge. And that local DA, the local sheriff, will then be deputizing folks like Ivan Raiklin and those of us that were thrown out of the military because we did not comply with the illegal DNA mutilation injection, the forced DNA mutilation injection.
Do you mean the COVID vaccine?
I'm talking about the CCP-19 lab incident money-making scheme by Pfizer, the Pfizer fail, the Moderna mutilation, or whether it was just a myocarditis-making, heart-exploding J&J jab. So those of us that were either thrown out or left because we would not participate in the DNA mutilation of our own physiological beings, there's 80,000 of us that are ready, willing, and able in order to be deputized by appropriate sheriffs throughout the country to be participants as lawful deputies to conduct a live stream swatting raids of every single person that we can identify that conducted the necessary unlawful activity by county on my deep state target list.
2 questions. Where did you get the 80,000 number? My first question.
Yeah. So 8,600, about 8,500 approximately, were thrown out of the military. Okay.
Because they wouldn't do the vaccine.
Because it wasn't a vaccine. The name of vaccine, the definition changed before the rollout, and it was never approved by the FDA. There was never a product that was approved by the FDA to then be able to coerce and manipulate into other people's bodies.
Okay.
Don't believe me? Look at the footnote on FDA's own quote-unquote approval of Pfizer's Comirnaty. Legally distinct, and the product was never created. The Pfizer BioNTech was created but that one was never approved. That was
Okay.
only under emergency use authorization.
Right.
So I need to correct you on that one. You need to do some more studying, ma'am, okay?
I hear you.
Next, 80,000, okay? As far as the 80,000 goes, that's the minimum that I see of folks that left the military early through retirement, ended their careers early because of the illegal mandate that was promulgated by and enforced by the entire chain of command. Those are also going to be, many of the members on the deep state target list are those military leaders, quote unquote leaders, I call them failures, within the Department of Defense and at the Pentagon that will face similar consequences for forcing and coercing unlawfully the mutilation of another person's body and thus minimizing and destroying our personal readiness
So this is
within
all
the
post
DoD.
2020 people you're talking
No.
about.
Come on. Are you going to ask that question in that level of ignorance? 2016, Crossfire Hurricane?
No. I mean,
Hello?
I'm saying the 80,000 that you
I
referenced.
mean, at this point, you're wasting my time if you don't even have that level of context. Take a couple hundred hours to research the subject, follow my work on Rumble. Once you see that, I want you to identify one thing that I have incorrect, and then you can start coming after me with questions to scrutinize it, because you have not done the necessary requisite research to for me to even give you my time. So I think that's about it.
Can I ask one last question? You don't have to
It
answer.
better be intelligent.
Well, I don't guess that'll be in the eye of the beholder. You don't think, you were saying it doesn't matter what happens in the election. So you don't think you need sort of the protection of Trump's Justice Department to do some of what you're talking about?
No, because we're going after the Justice Department.
But like,
They are the enemy. That's what you fail to understand. The individuals that I mentioned are the enemy of our constitutional order. We're coming for them maximally. And how we're coming for them is because we are engaging with counties and states in order to crush them.
with vis-a-vis, like via the sheriffs, basically.
What do you think Alvin Bragg's doing right now? Is that a federal officer?
No.
Exactly my point. Look at the counties in this country that are red versus blue. It is overwhelmingly red. So Alvin Bragg and the Dems are setting our precedent as we go on offense.
Okay. Well, thanks, Ivan.
It's going to be a doozy. And I love it when it gets spicy. And there are, again,
I believe you.
out of the 80,000 of us, we are clamoring to be deputized by sheriffs nationwide in order to conduct the necessary live stream raids, if they want to push us to that.
So if I did want to follow up with you, and you
And I'll
wanted
say
to
lastly,
answer, yeah,
there are over 1 million service members. I'm going to say this. Like you said, Secretary of Retribution. The Secretary of Retribution consists of 3 divisions. Number 1, the research arm. And should there be a mechanism where we create it, it's going to be the first division. Is, again, everything I'm telling you, I've already said it publicly. And I have many podcasts where I've said this.
yeah.
So number 1, we're going to have a research arm to continue to develop our targets, okay?
Okay.
Number 2, and that's going to be staffed by January 6th defendants, family members, as well as their lawyers, since they have already kind of conducted some of that research. So they're already kind of interned, if you will, over the last 3.5 years. Number 2 will be the 2nd division, which will include the action arm, the 80,000 of us that have decades of conducting this type of activity of actioning targets overseas, right? And the 3rd arm is going to consist of those that will live stream, right? Independent media, obviously not your organization, won't be included in that.
Well, we don't
But they will
live
ride
streams.
along. They will ride along and live stream the swattings and raids of the 2nd division that I just mentioned, that are properly and appropriately deputized to conduct those raids. And then the 1st arm is obviously going to be the ones that create those lists. We're just using the playbook and the precedents that has already been developed to target those that conducted lawful First Amendment activity on January 6th, and everything downstream from that.
So if you say you don't need, you're not waiting for Trump's election, like when are you planning to do it?
Stand by.
Okay. So
Just keep an eye on things.
Okay. So how could I follow up with you?
So you can follow everything I do online. Everything's public.
But like, if
And
I
I
wanted to
advocate,
ask you a
again,
question,
I advocate for the most, these people are going to experience the most peaceful and patriotic, lawful, moral, and ethical experience of their life.
the swatting in the ratings sounds scarier than lawful and ethical and peaceful.
It's legal, moral, ethical. I said it was peaceful and patriotic. It may not be peaceful for them, but for me, it'll be peaceful.
All right, welcome back. That was a stunning exclusive footage of I guess the coin title of Secretary of Retribution, Mr. Ivan Raiklin, a former military, I should say. Well, I guess they're always Green Beret, Special Forces, who was forced out of the military due to the mandate of the miracle gems. So let me hone in on that just for a minute. There's some very key points that we just heard there. If you're just getting here, this is probably one of the most not just exclusive, but damning footages I've seen in quite some time about how this is all going to look. But he was forced out, like many in the military, due to the miracle gem and the mandate for it. And here he is talking about how this is going to look, whether there's an election or not. This is some stunning stuff. But I also want to mention some of the other things that we heard there. The live cam footage that they're going to do, just like we saw in the raids of Roger Stone and Manafort, others over the course of probably 6 years now. That's going to be done. And he's very absolutely correct about the precedence has been set, the bar, the stage, everything the so-called Democrats have been doing, which has never been done before, trying, a trial of former presidents for crimes that are non-crimes. So since that seems to be now the protocol, the new normal, if we're going to be charging former presidents now, imagine what that's going to look like. Imagine what that's going to look like when John Brennan is made to do the walk of shame like he forced Roger Stone to do just a number of years ago. He is a key player of the domestic enemies in this country, and the domestic enemies that you're going to see and hopefully hear about on this 350 person list are the people running this very website of Facebook right now, YouTube, and some other major censored platforms that we have encountered over the course of time. And this is so interesting because I put a post out on Twitter last night calling for this very moment of action before I even knew about this. And I said that the amount of blood on the hands of Facebook and YouTube alone is astronomical. It's beyond measurable. And I say that because you think about all of the doctors, all of the independent media, myself included, and many others, that were censored, put out of business, which Facebook is attempting to do right now to Real Deal Media, both pages, and YouTube as well, unsubbing, and everybody else, except for selected few. You think about that, all this information we have shared with you over the course of about 4 years now, almost, and how that was not allowed to be shared to a mass audience from all over the world that could have saved lives. How many people do we know or knew that don't even just parade in circles like these that talk like this? So many. In fact, there's people that are going on vacation right now to Mexico and in what we deemed as very dangerous parts. They have no clue about what's happening on the world stage, what's happening in just the state, their own states. Don't have a clue. They have a perception of little sound bites they hear in there, but have no clue. Imagine that. So these messages, and everything we've stood for has been prevented from reaching the masses. And the ones who have reached this message, it's because those who seek, you have to seek things now. You like certain music, that's good. You have to seek it. You like healthy food, you have to seek it. You have to want to know. And the seekers are the ones who are going to survive this monstrosity that has held, I should say, the world at this point. And let me tell you some other things that are happening now. In fact, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take just a quick little break here. I got to put some my notes and files together. There are some things happening in Canada. There's also a follow-up to what took place with the attempted assassination of the Slavic president just days ago. And some major things happening, especially with Trudeau, I'm going to tell you about. So you're watching a Late Night Update, a live rendition of it for a change, very impromptu, but this is so important. I could not let this slide through my hands at any given time. So anyway, stand by. We'll be back after this quick message with some other late night updates that are happening in your neck of the woods. Stand by. There's a practitioner out there called Sarah Adams. You might have seen her on the Gaia channels. She used to be the girlfriend of the super soldier named Max Spears. Now, that is a heretic woman that has performed sex magic, I can tell you, extorts people, and is a ruthless. And this is what you find out more often than not in the people in the so-called spirituality movement. They're quite the opposite of what they portray. If you know what I'm talking about, it is beyond obvious, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that this creature looks like a demonic Barbie doll. Pure evil she is. And she performed a black magic on a whole plethora of people, and I got her number so bad, and she better watch what she does to me, because I'm more powerful than any voodoo doll, I'll tell you that.
More things have happened on a spiritual level for me, and also physical level, to be connected.
Looks like a demonic Barbie doll.
And also it allows us to do things like astral travel, astral projection, things like that. Astral travel, astral projection, things like that. To be connected allows me astral travel, astral projection, things like that.
We are back. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Welcome back to Real Deal Media's original series here, Late Night Update. Very impromptu. We saw some major fireworks. A lot of places, especially on X over there, it's blowing up with what you just witnessed here tonight. So let me just run through some little updates, because this all ties in together of what we're witnessing here. You know, we're seeing a lot of people do what you call a CYA, cover your own ass. You see it with Chris Cuomo. You see, and you'll hear this line, we were just following orders. Where have we heard this before? Let me tell you what's now the echoing happening in Canada. And the film, The Horror of Havana, could not come out at a more definitive time than the 24th of May. But let me tell you this right now. Here's some people talking. A lot of people are now saying that the Trudeau government over there in Canada, and they're very complicit in this too. Don't think this is just a stateside ordeal here. See, we know that a U.S. Navy warship went to Halifax, Canada, and that's all we heard about it. Don't think. And you're going to see people backing away from little Justin Trudeau there, the illegitimate bastard of Castro. But here's what they're saying now. Trudeau government is backing away from its online censorship bill C-11. And they're now saying over there in Canada, this will affect the U.S. And let's not forget, they're now forming the little psychiatric groups of people. They're going to help people cope with the Donald Trump return. And we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so here it is, continuing. Feds are now kicking the can on this issue. A anonymous person has shared, and reports are saying the government won't implement the law until late 2025. So they're trying to do that now. But in addition to that, people are saying by June of this year, they're going to try to oust Trudeau. Now, that sounds all great and fine. We saw that with the New York Governor Cuomo. A lot of people were applauding, but not as many, because we know who they replace him with, a different prototype. But they think that it will pacify the Canadian people and everybody else just a little longer if they put another stooge in. Now, how Trudeau's going to play it is the same way you're going to see many people stateside, many people in Australia, especially England, which is just infested with issues, problems, and poverty, is you're going to start to see a plausibility of denial, plausibility. Yeah, you're going to be seeing that kind of echo happen from state to county. And let's not forget the school boards in the small counties all over the, whether it's, Canada, US, everywhere, that went along with this. They took the bribes to force the mask on kids. We have a maimed, PTSD riddled, if not deceased, generation of young kids from high school too. Want to go to high school? You want to play football? Look at all the high school football players that just died suddenly, and these just dumbos haven't figured it out yet because they're not seeking, you see? And this message is not allowed to break through the matrix. And what this gentleman is talking about is music to my ears, almost induced with like real 100% butter. That's how rich that was. So let me tell you a bit more about this now, because also the Slavic president, let me get into that. I have to remind myself, there's so much going on in my head. I can't stand myself right now. It's incredible. Well, now we're learning, just like we saw in the Congo, the presidents that didn't go along with the COVAX. Well, check this out now. The prime minister of Slovakia, the Slavic president, Robert Fico, he was shot now. We don't know if he's alive or what's going to be happening there, but they're now saying that he rejected, get this, he rejected the WHO's audacious pandemic preparedness treaty and international health regulations. Isn't that special and fascinating? Let me continue here, because this really spells it all out. So whoever is steering the WHO, what this means is it's being used to rid national sovereignty down to the local level. And this is what they're doing. They're going for broke right now. And they're going to try to do another lockdown. You're going to see the blue cities go along with this. But what he said, now let's get into what he said, is there are more counties in just Texas alone that have the firepower, the deputy, the constitutional God-given just presence and excellence to execute what needs to happen, because Dominion machines are not. As long as there is a bully pulpit of no oversight committees for whether it's the CIA, the FBI, who have all been politicized and have been pinned against the American people. And the same applies to all of the Commonwealth as well. And America has to lead the way of how to get out of this mess. America has to break through. We have to rush like Walter Payton down the middle of the field and break through this brick wall of silence, of censorship, of treason. And notice what he said there. They'll be punished constitutionally fairly in whatever that entails for the seditious act of treason. Well, last time I checked, treason was, you didn't just get detention or Saturday school. Go to your room and think about it. No, I'll tell you what it is. It's firing squad, and dare I say, hanging, which is the whole Jussie Smollett little psyop attempt that Michelle Obama was a part of as well, to rid a so-called lynching. Do we say? Because they know. They know. So this is happening. And meanwhile, everything we've seen that's playing out in regards to the geopolitical landscape, foreign wars, accepting money. This is how they got it. Because so what this tells me is it's very true. Obama gets into office. 2008, he wins the election. He gets in 2009. He's put in there, and he is prodded on more than just for many reasons, but he's put in there. He's created by John Brennan, former head of the CIA, former CIA director, the main guy, John Brennan. John Brennan is a registered communist. I've really laid out a foundation of crimes against that excrement that he is. He creates Obama. Nobody knows who Barack Obama is throughout his whole college career. He says a constitutional lawyer. His professors never heard of that name before. Nobody knows. You look into his, if you could, or could at the time, you look into his lawyer record. He has like 5 cases, very minimal. He probably didn't even show up. So he's a created, fictitious saboteur who was sent here to torpedo us into this great reset, which is now being thwarted. It's being subsided in the most localized effort and very stringent that you can possibly do. Because many of these counties, even local small counties, wherever country you are currently in, they have more powers than they realize. And it's just about using the muscle. It's about using your speech. If you don't use the speech, that is why it's the First Amendment, you lose it. If you don't walk, if you don't practice your cursive in writing, you lose the ability to do it. And that's what's happening here. So now this all makes sense. And there is a plan and there's a way to do it. So Dominion machines or not, as long as these corrupt intelligence agencies are supposed to protect us are in any way, shape, or form still in power or have the power that they have had for quite some time, then it doesn't matter. And he's absolutely correct. Elections are just little, show ponies for the peanut gallery. It is very disturbing. And I think that you're going to see a lot of people step up that you probably weren't aware of. Might be the new Speaker of the House, Thomas Massey. In fact, Thomas Massey just introduced a bill today that is going to end the Federal Reserve, the greatest form of tyranny in the United States since 1913, since a bunch of senators were on a cruise ship that in 1912, and it had just happened to hit a iceberg. Yeah. We've been in a world war, in a war conflict for the past 100+ years now, because we've had a unvetted, unelected, shadowy government that's printing monopoly money that we use, conducting wars we don't even know about. We always hear about wars in Yemen. Well, who's doing it? It can't be the military. We don't know people there, but they wear military fatigue. It doesn't mean they are. So that's what it is. And now, kind of in closing, now we understand why that there has been a gigantic effort to allow military-age men in all of our countries, because that's going to be their army, because they don't have one. Somebody came out today and said, I worked with Bill Gates. I was thinking, the real one, when he was still alive? He said, yes, I did. I worked with him, and he said to me, and I'm paraphrasing, but it went to something of the accord of, if people truly know or truly knew what was in these miracle jabs, they would throw stones at us in the street. And that's coming. That's coming. And all of the military generals, all of the major union leaders and employers that went along with this to mandate these things on children, and what Canada's doing now, saying, well, we have to get children 2 and under. Let's get them while they're still in the womb. They have committed seditious treason, and we know the punishment for that. And this gentleman here laid it all out. I'm just trying to highlight it for him, for all of you. So I'm going to end it there, as we've gone a little longer than I was anticipating. But let me just say that this was truly a really big eye opener, as I knew something like this was lurking around the corner. I could feel it in just my loins at this point, because I'm going by gut feeling and not by peer pressure or ideology at this point. I'm going by pure instincts, and I've always felt this. So when will it happen? I think this is going to happen. Well, I think we're looking at November, but it's got to happen soon, because the cards are stacked against us. They're going to try to prevent everything. We're going to be getting the kitchen sink thrown at all of us. Lone gunmen, the Pride Parade, as the FBI is saying now. And speaking of that, it just blew my mind. Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, former attorney for Chris Christie, the man who it just is so disturbed by just the mentioning of Donald Trump. You know why? Because now I think we get it, that he was intact with the intel agency, just like Mike Pence was. And I shared with everybody one of the biggest tidbits of the Mueller report that we missed, that I certainly was spouting from the rooftops, was that Mike Pence, like Chris Christie, who was fired initially, and Mike Pence's chief of staff, and Nikki Haley too, they were wired, they were bugged, as they were trying to set up Donald Trump in that whole first year, if not more. And it's in the Mueller report. Nobody talks about it. See, that stiff has a lot to answer for. And so does that little witch, Nikki Haley. So that's something to just think about over and over again. So this is it. And this is what the real insurrection sounds like and is going to be looking like. And it's going to be major ordeal. And I'm telling you, something will happen, whether it's this guy leading, because there's a lot of, I'll end it here. And my final thought is, behind every blade of grass now is an American who has been waiting patiently, who's been on the shelf too long, and they're now ready to give a big response to a very big problem that was handed to all of us in generations to come. And the American people will answer. And it's not going to be broadcast in red carpet like all the other, Alvin Bragg and all these other people. It will be a response, a big response. So there you have it there. I'm going to leave it there. I want to thank all of you joining me for this late night update, a very impromptu one, but a very important one. I thought I had to share and converse with all of you out there here tonight. So I will leave it there. Until next time, I'm Dean Ryan, remembering and telling you to always stay tuned and stay awake, as the future is definitely coming on. It's going to be some major fireworks. So good night, everybody.